Hey there, I'm ARTFX and welcome to my YouTube channel. I am a music producer who makes mostly drum and bass music, but I make other genres as well. I do music production tutorials and live streams on this YouTube channel. Now, if you're new here and you want to stay up to date of all my videos, then please click the subscribe button below. And if you do, it would mean a lot if you can click the little notification icon as well, so that you get an update as soon as I post something on this YouTube channel. Today, we are going to talk about how to make realistic sounding piano parts. Now, I've been playing around with liquid drum and bass lately, as some of you guys told me to do, and I really enjoy writing piano pieces. So I wanted to talk a bit about how to make them sound more realistic and more convincing. We are going to start with a really simple chord progression that sounds a little bit something like this. And if everything goes right, then we might end up with something sounding a little bit like this. Let's get to it. So here we are in Ableton Live, and I've got a really basic chord progression, and it sounds like this. So that's a really basic chord progression. Now, that's something I always like to start off with. Just start with some really basic triad chords and try to find something that sounds good enough. Now, this sounds good enough, but I'm using the grand piano that comes with Ableton Live suite. And let's be honest, it's an okay sounding piano. I mean, it sounds good, but I would say there's much better pianos out there. So the first thing I want to do, if I want to make something that sounds realistic, is probably use a Contact piano library. So I've got a Contact piano library here, and let me drag the same clip up in that one. Let's just play the same chord progression, but now with una corda. So you can hear right off the bat that this one sounds warmer, it sounds smaller and more intimate than the grand piano that I just played that comes from Ableton Live. So we are going to work with this in particular, with this particular Contact library. When I say writing something realistic, there's a couple of things you have to think of. And one in particular that is really important is that you gotta remember that as a pianist, you can only play in a particular way. You know, and what I mean with that is that your hands are only a specific size, and you have a maximum reach that you can reach with just one hand. So if you spread your hand out as far as possible, that is your maximum reach. So you can't really play notes that are further apart than that reach. So you gotta remember that. Like when I would make this chord progression, and this would, right now, this is easily playable. But if I space the notes out much further apart, so something like this, it's still the same kind of chord. It's still a B minor chord, just with a different voicing, but the notes are spaced out so far that I would need two hands to play that. So that's something you gotta think of when you actually want to write a realistic sounding piano part. Another thing that you can think of is that usually you play with two hands. Now, I'm not a good piano player, so I'm going to program this, and I'm going to show you how you can actually make something that is convincing enough to put in a track without being able to play it. And you usually play chords with your left hand, which would be like the chords that you're seeing here, and then you can use your right hand to play a top melody. And that would make it an interesting thing, and that's what we're going to do today as well. With that left hand, you're usually going to play either 3-note chords or 4-note chords. You have 5 fingers, but playing a 5-note chord with one hand is, well, probably not something a lot of people can do. Maybe if you have huge hands, you might be able to do it, but I don't think you will. So 4-note chords is probably the maximum you want to do. Let's get into it. Now, one thing that we can do to spice this up a little bit is right now all the notes of the chords are the exact same volume. And that is not something a real pianist would do when he plays, right? So let's change the chord velocities up a bit. So I want that bottom note to be a little bit quieter. And I'm gonna make that middle note the quietest. So now the top note is the loudest of the entire chord. And let's do something similar here. And I'm again gonna do something similar here. So that's already a little bit more realistic. We can spice this up a little bit. Let's turn this G major chord into, I think this is a G major 7th. Let's listen to that. See, I really like that. So I think we're going to use one 4-note chord. And I think that's good enough. So now we can play around with this a bit. So maybe I want to change the voicings of the chord. Let's see. So that's a little bit better. Now, let's try and offset these notes a little bit. So let's see how it sounds if we do something like this. So now we have something that sounds a little bit more like a good chord progression. Now, we can make this a little bit better because normally when you play a chord progression, there will be a little bit of a gap between the chords because there's no way you can play one chord and then play another chord right after it. There's always going to be a little bit of a gap between the chords. So what we can do is just select everything and just bring them in a little bit so that there's a little bit of a gap. Because that's just always going to be the case. Maybe even more. You also might not end all the notes at the same time, so you might want to change those up a little bit as well. We can do it pretty randomly, and I will probably speed this process up in post. Now I'm going to add a compressor to this so that this becomes a little bit louder, because you guys might not be able to hear it that well. So now let's try and come up with a top melody that works in this particular chord progression. So I think I want to try starting on a D. So you can see I'm playing around with the velocities and with the timing of these notes to make something that sounds pretty realistic and pretty convincing. Let's bring these notes in a bit.
Approximately 10 hours later.
So there you have it. That's a pretty convincing piano part. From here, we can do one more thing. And that is not really that realistic, but it does sound pretty good. So I'm going to take the bass notes of the chords and let's drop those an octave lower. And we can maybe make them a little bit quieter. So here we are. I spent a little bit more time on it. I duplicated the length of it, so we have now 2 times the same MIDI clip. I also put a drum break in it, a little bit of a lead guitar with Omnisphere, and then we have a final choir patch in Omnisphere, and that made it sound like this. So that was it for this tutorial. I hope you learned something and I hope you liked watching it. Now, I'm going to do a lot more tutorials this year and I need your guys' help. I want you guys to tell me what you want me to do more tutorial videos about. This can be a tutorial, but this could also be a music production challenge, or maybe you just want to see me doing a short video about me tackling a particular genre that I don't really make or that I never made before. Just let me know in the comments below what you want me to do more videos about, and together we can make this YouTube channel even better. So that was it for this video. I hope you liked it, and I'll hope to see you back in the next video. Upcoming Friday is going to be a live stream as well, and if you have an idea for what the live stream needs to be about, because I have no clue yet, then let me know in the comments below. I hope you liked this video, and I'll see you back soon. Peace!